Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're all doing super well. It is getting colder, the fire is on, the humidity has dropped, and today I wanted to walk you through what I do to prepare my houseplants for winter. When we start to approach winter, the conditions in our houses generally change quite a bit. Now, depending on where you are in the world, this generally means that the heat gets turned up, the humidity drops, and the light levels get lower. Now that results generally in a bit of a shock to our houseplants and an adjustment period. At the same time, it's generally when pests tend to show up again. They start to attack your plants, and the plants may be under further stress because of the changing conditions. And so there's a couple of things that I do to prepare my plants for this period and throughout winter in general. So I'd like to walk you through that today. I asked in my last video if you'd like to see this, and a lot of you said yes. So I hope that this answers all of your questions on how I prepare my houseplants for the winter season. As the light levels get lower, I do actually supplement the lighting for my houseplants using grow lights. You guys know that I love the Spider Farmer grow lights. I've seen really great results using them. They're the highest quality grow lights that I have, and they're really easy to use. So Spider Farmer have asked me to let you guys know that if you're interested, they are having a Black Friday sale, which is running from the 22nd of November to the 28th, and you can get up to 20% off. So if you're interested, I will leave the links in the description, and they also have a promotional video. Let's get into how I prepare my houseplants for the winter season. Okay, so the first thing that I do, which I haven't done every year, but I have done this year, is to reduce your collection. Obviously, we talk a lot about having a lot of houseplants and all of this, but sometimes it does get overwhelming, and some plants don't do the best in winter. So this year I went through my entire collection and I looked at each plant and I thought, do you grow well for me? Do I love you? Do I get joy from you? Marie Kondo, does this bring me joy? And I went through and I actually gave away loads of houseplants. Well, loads, maybe about 10 or 15. That was a lot for me. So I actually gave most of these away to my grandmother and some away to other members in my family, and they're all dotted around their houses, and it's really nice to see. So these were plants that are fairly common. They generally take up a lot of space. I don't love them. Like, am I raving about them? Not really. And you know, I was thinking about they'd probably give someone else more joy than they're giving me right now. So these plants included my big, huge peace lily, my Ficus elastica tuniki, which was hard to give away, to be honest, because it was doing really well. My two Monstera deliciosa, I kept my biggest large form one. What else? I actually can't remember the other ones. That's how much I cared about them. So these plants were big, they took up a lot of space, they weren't bringing me that much joy, as I said, and you know, would take the pressure off from space requirements, which I don't have a lot of, to be honest, and there's just no need to, you know, to have these. You don't need to have them. There are also common plants that, you know, when we move, they're, you know, if I really miss them, I can always pick them up again. They're nothing really high value or hard to find. So that helps in refining your collection. You're really thinking about what your plants need and trying to give them the best conditions that you can give them. And sometimes that means getting rid of the ones that you don't like as much. And I think we need to normalize getting rid of plants, and, well, not getting rid of, because that's very wasteful, but, you know, giving them away or having more conscious purchases when you do buy a plant. And, you know, we all slip up, but you know what I'm trying to say. I think it's just better in the long run to do it this way. So the second thing that I do then after that is relocate. So I actually generally move around all of my houseplants, well, most of them, to different positions based off winter. So as you might have seen in my houseplant tour, I do have kind of three main areas of the house. So we have our bedroom, we have this kind of hallway, and then downstairs. So in the bedroom, humidity is generally higher because it's away from the fire that's downstairs. This area here, the hallway, is actually above the fire, so humidity drops quite a bit when that is on, and it's on most of the time. It's how we get our heating. So I will move, let's say, more high humidity loving plants into the bedrooms. Now, I definitely don't do this perfectly or do it for every single one, but generally higher humidity loving houseplants such as begonias and things like that, I will try to move into the bedroom. And plants that are not so fussy and actually would like the higher heat levels and can deal with the drop in humidity, I will keep in this area. So it's not ideal for every plant, but it's enough to get them through the season, you know? So for you, this might mean moving plants away from heat sources like radiators or whatever your heat sources are, and trying to group them together into higher humidity areas. So one thing that might help with that is these little humidity readers. I have one right here on my shelf. So you can place them in different areas in your house, you know, leave it there for 24 hours, move it there for 24 hours, and see what the conditions are in each kind of. They're kind of like microclimates within your house. And so based off that, then you can move your plants to the areas that they would prefer. Now, on top of that, the relocating is a lot to do with light as well. There are areas in my house that I don't put grow lights. During the summer months, it might be totally fine for me to leave lower or medium light loving houseplants in certain areas of my house, but then in the winter, it's far too dark for them. They need to come out of those areas. So I will place them underneath grow light locations. I have a couple of different grow light locations. I have one here, I have the Spider Farmer grow light there, and we move them to group them underneath the light to give them the best light that they can get. And in my last video in the 6-month update, excuse me, in my last video I showed you how I have like plants on the lower section of this shelf to kind of maximize the use of the best grow light that I have. So the third thing is treating for pests. Now, even if I don't see pests on my houseplants around this time, I generally try to treat everything in my house because I know that there will be some that I miss. So generally what I will do is I'll take sections of my houseplant collection, such as the bedroom, and I'll focus on that for 1 week. I'll move them into the shower downstairs. I'll rinse them down with water, shower everything down, blast them with water just in case there's any pests that I can't see. And then I will give them a neem oil and soap and warm water mix. A lot of soap. The more sudsy, the more bubbles and suds in the soap, the better I find. And I will spray them all down. I'll wait for them to dry and then I'll move them upstairs. Now that is a process when you have so many houseplants, but I will generally, actually everything I do in this video, I will do over the course of a couple of weeks. It's way too much to do and too much pressure to prepare everything all at once. You know, I will do it around October, November time, and that has worked really well for me. Things that help with avoiding pest outbreaks as well is being super observant with your plants, checking them over. Also, wiping down the leaves with that same mix that I mentioned earlier can help, wiping dust off the leaves, making sure that there's no debris on the leaves, which can both help pests to hide and help you to not see them. The fourth thing that I will do is pruning. So I will lightly prune not everything, but some plants. So it depends on how many leaves they have. If they're like an anthurium, let's say, that only has a couple of leaves, I'm definitely not going to do it to them. But if it is a pothos or, I mean, an epipremnum or something like that, and there's some old straggly leaves, I will prune them off. Now, I very lightly prune my plants. I don't like cutting off leaves unnecessarily. If they're yellowing, I generally try to let them yellow until they fall off themselves, or you can easily pull them off. But the reason I do this is because, you know, the plant has to make a certain amount of energy to sustain all of these leaves. And having less leaves when you're going into a stressful period of winter with less light and less humidity, it might, I think in theory, makes it easier for the plant so that it doesn't have to make as much energy. But obviously that also depends on how much light you're giving your plants in winter and how much humidity they're getting. If that's not a significant drop, then it may be totally unnecessary to do this. So this is kind of an optional one, and it's not something that I lean on very heavily. So the next thing is artificial lighting. This is something that is talked about a lot in the houseplant world. There are many, many different options, both cheaper and more expensive, and more kind of basic ones and more high quality. There's a lot of lights out there, and it's something that is definitely not necessary. I want to stress that you know, houseplants can cost a lot of money and it can stress you out, and if you don't have the budget for that kind of thing, you know, lights definitely aren't necessary for your houseplants. Most houseplants will be totally fine over winter without supplemental lighting. I want to stress that. There's houseplants I have downstairs, like my little cactus and succulent collection. I don't give them any supplemental lighting during the year. But the thing that happens then is that they go into a kind of a dormancy period and they're not actively growing. That's totally fine. They can not actively grow and still stay alive, and then next spring and summer, when light starts to increase, they will wake up again and they'll start growing again. If you want your houseplants to continue growing and actively growing throughout winter, it can help to give supplemental lighting. So I actually only use two types of grow lights at the moment, and those are the Spider Farmer, which you know very well, and then I have these other grow lights that I picked up from Amazon about 2 years ago. I'll insert footage, but they kind of had three main lights. They're on bendy rods, which I find super helpful for, you know, orientating the light how you like it and over certain plants and stuff. These lights also come with their own timer, which is fantastic. I actually have bought a timer thing for the socket of the Spider Farmer light, so everything I have with the grow lights is automated. Last year I used to wake up and I used to turn them all on, and like, that's fine, it doesn't take a lot of time, but it is much better to have them automated, I find. So they will generally be on for about 12 hours per day. And also, just to say, like, grow lights can get super expensive. Like, the range in price is absolutely massive. I do just want to say that, like, the cheaper grow lights have always worked well for me and they've done a great job, and the more expensive ones have also done a great job. So I just, you know, that's totally personal preference and what you want to spend. Another thing to consider is humidity. So like I was saying, when the temperature rises, humidity tends to drop a little bit. So it kind of dries out the air. That goes for fire, radiator, whatever kind of heat source that you have, that generally tends to happen. So again, something that is totally not necessary, but something I consider and something that you could consider doing is to increase humidity in certain areas in your home. So I have one humidifier. It's by Combs, and it's been great so far. I had a previous version that actually kind of malfunctioned and wasn't working, and then I sent them a message and they sent me out a new one. So I thought that was a pretty positive experience, and I'm really happy with the new one. I've had no problems. I got the older version last January, I believe. So I had it for kind of half the winter season, and it definitely made a difference. Now I have to say that humidifiers only change the microclimate in a small area. If you have a humidifier in one side of the room, depending on how big the room is, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to increase the humidity on the other side of the room. You will need a couple of humidifiers to have that impact. But for me, one is enough. I don't give it to all of my houseplants. I only give it to a few, maybe the more picky ones. And it basically works by vaporizing the water and increases the humidity that way. So that's what I use to increase humidity in certain areas. And like I said before, with the relocating, even relocating without the use of a humidifier, just relocating the plants to areas that have higher humidity and are less affected by the heat and the dry air, then that works as well. There are loads of other ways to increase humidity as well. I've seen people use kind of pebble trays beside their houseplants. I've seen people, like Heart Shaped Leaves, uses a clear shower curtain over her shelving, which has worked really well as well. That kind of traps the humidity in there. That's something that you can try that's super cheap and effective. And also terrariums, old fish tanks, you can put some particular plants in there that will keep the humidity. Kind of like an area to enclose a space will trap humidity in as well. So something that changes in what I do with my houseplants in my house is, so because the air outside is significantly colder, I will open the windows less than I would in the summer now. In the summer, I leave the windows open a lot because I like the airflow. I think it's good for the houseplants and for, just general health. It's good to get some fresh air. So I generally leave these windows open, the skylights that I have open a lot of the time. But obviously with the colder air, I don't want my houseplants going into severe shock at all. So I will do that less. Now I definitely still open them, which sometimes doesn't go so well, but I try it. But definitely for less time. So in order to increase airflow indoors, then I do use fans. These are definitely not on all the time. If it's really, really hot in here with the fire, you can't really turn it off. So turning on the fan might cool them a bit. It helps increase the airflow around the plants, which also helps, it helps the soil, aerating the soil and stuff like that. So that is something that I do to increase the airflow a little bit around the plants instead of leaving the windows open like I do in summer. Just two final notes then, which aren't really big pointers, but just something that I note that changes in winter. So one thing is that certain types of plants actually go dormant in winter. Certain plants like caladiums will have a dormancy period. So I will generally just let them die off and then I'll cut back the foliage and store the bulbs. They're generally bulb plants are the ones that are going to have a period of dormancy. So I do have a video that I put up last year of storing my caladium bulbs and how I do that. So I will link that if you're interested. And also I know other plants like alocasia. I have two alocasia. My stingray is almost dead, so let's just forget about that one. But my alocasia zebrina, this is my first winter with this plant, so I don't really know what it's going to do. But I have heard that alocasia do also sometimes have a dormancy period. So if some plants are dying back, also Venus flytraps, I believe, have a dormancy period. So some plants might be dying back and it might look like you're killing them, but maybe that's what they're actually meant to do. For me, I don't have many plants that do that. It's generally just my caladiums, but just to note that for winter. And the other thing is that going into winter, as I said, your plants are a bit stressed. You're going to get a couple of yellow leaves, whether that is a little bit of overwatering because the watering tends to change with increased heat and less humidity and stuff like that and less light. The watering schedules tend to change a little bit. You can get yellowing leaves just for no reason as well. It may not be your fault. Maybe the plant is just getting rid of some foliage, like I said with the pruning earlier. It might note the changing conditions and want to get rid of some foliage to not have as much pressure on the energy it needs to create. And I just want to note that that's totally normal. Yellowing leaves at this time of year is totally normal. It's a plant's natural process and it's something that happens to all of us. So I just want to note that. Don't start to freak out if you're getting some yellow leaves. It's totally cool. Monitor the plant, check for pests, check your watering schedule. Other than that, it may be just the plant doing what it needs to do. So I think that I've covered pretty much most of the things to do with houseplants in winter. So a lot of those things, like I said, are definitely not necessary things to be doing. Some of them are just notes. Some things are things that I actively do to prepare them or to prepare myself for caring for them. So yeah, it can be a little bit of a stressful time in your houseplant care. With pests showing up, with yellowing leaves, with, you know, drier conditions. Try not to get overwhelmed with this. You know, I just spend a couple of weeks preparing them. I might lose some leaves. That's just all part of the process in caring for plants. So don't freak out. It's cool. You got it covered. It's just a different period of caring for your plants. It's a different time of year. It's different conditions. And those are a couple of things that you can do to improve your houseplant's transition into this period. So if I left anything out or if you have any questions, please let me know down below. Like I said, if you are interested in the Spider Farmer Black Friday sale, I will leave the links in the description. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're all doing great and taking care of yourselves and your plants, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.